Asylum right is human right!
Asylum right is human right!
Stop deporting asylum seekers!
I am outside the Home Office in London on my way to a demonstration organized by the Coalition to Stop Deportation to Iraq.
Iraq is not safe!
Iraq is not safe!
Kurdistan is not safe!
Kurdistan is not safe!
Iraq
Sherzad Jalal is on the Home Office's list of forced repatriation. He claimed asylum upon his arrival in the UK in 1999 and has spent 8 years living in London. As a failed asylum seeker, Sherzad no longer has any rights in this country whatsoever. Furthermore, if selected by the Home Office, Sherzad could find himself repatriated within a week.
Sherzad, بو هاوارەکەی.
لەبەرەوەی بەیانی ئەمەش ئەم قەرارە کە داویانە ئەگەرم مەجموعەیە بنێرنەوە بەیانی دووبیانی ئێمە شەگرێتەوە هەر هەمومان.
According to the International Federation of Iraqi Refugees, there are 8,000 more on the Home Office's list of forced repatriation, most of whom had escaped Iraq from Saddam and have already spent more than 6 years establishing a new life in the UK.
Do you had a good night's sleep?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Good.
Currently, Sherzad lives with his British girlfriend, Katie. They have been together for 6 years now and want to get married.
When we
We
plan our
plan to
wedding,
get married on your birthday, after her birthday, on May 31st.
However, under a new UK law introduced on the 2nd of February 2005, failed asylum seekers are not allowed to get married here.
we need permission from the Home Office to get married, what they call certificate of marriage. And we're not able to obtain that at the moment. It puts us in a difficult situation. It puts pressures in our relationship as well. And I'm sure it would with any couples out there who's in a similar situation.
We will fight for it. Because it's our right to get married. Forget about citizenship, forget about where you live. We want to go on our life.
Sherzad claims his life will be in danger if he is forced to return to his hometown of Kirkuk, and he has good reason to do so. Kirkuk is far from safe and has become just as violent as anywhere in Iraq. During the first 3 months of 2007, a total of 90 bombs exploded there. Saadullah Muhammad Kakil, another Iraqi Kurd, came to the UK in 2002 seeking refuge. He was just 16. He lived here in Peterborough for 4 years. His asylum application was refused. The Home Office told him to go home or he will be forcibly repatriated. As a failed asylum seeker, Saadullah was denied any support from the government and was refused permission to work. It was a hand-to-mouth existence, but terrified of the prospect of what awaited him in the increasingly violent theater of Iraq, he stayed on for 4 years, living off the charity of relatives and friends seen gathered here. Eventually, when the British government offered him £3,000 to return, Saadullah chose to fly home to Kirkuk. And on Sunday, the 28th of January 2007, he was tragically killed by a car bomb. The question is whether the government should have offered a financial incentive to return to a country where, according to the UN, more than 30,000 people were killed last year. Rebwar, Saadullah's cousin, is angry at the choice Saadullah was given.
ام حکومتی که کم زاوریان گل کو قربوی او انسان چونه دنو کتیا چو لپینا و چیا لبری او بهاد بولاتي شال بجار كما في بپارزري.
Keen to avoid the same fate as Saadullah, Sherzad is refusing to accept the so-called voluntary return. While he remains here, he must report to the police every week. But Sherzad is scared because many of his friends have been suddenly detained when reporting and were marched straight to a detention center to be forcibly repatriated.
Sherzad, if you are so worried while reporting to the police you might be detained and put on a plane and sent back, why are you reporting to the police?
I know that, but I don't want to be illegal. If I stop reporting,
I will become a legal immigrant. So I don't want to be a legal immigrant, and I'm hoping to win my case.
For the entire time that Sherzad has been reporting to the police in this manner, he has remained a model citizen and a valued member of his community. He had already escaped a life of persecution in Iraq, and so it seems even more unfair that he should be treated with similar suspicion in the UK.
Well, we are waiting for Sherzad. He is reporting right now at the police station. And let's see if he will come out or he will join the other detainees who are now waiting their forced repatriation.
If Sherzad is detained and repatriated to Iraq, Katie will not be able to visit him while the war lasts. Fortunately, after a while he appears.
Yeah. Oh, glad you're out.
Katie and Sherzad can relax again until next week.
Yeah.
Demonstrations continue outside Colnbrook Detention Center near Heathrow. 2 days before, a group of 38 failed Kurdish asylum seekers are due to be forced repatriated.
Iraq is unsafe!
Sherzad joins the demonstrators, and there are many British citizens too, including MP John McDonnell.
What we want to do is get back to a situation where innocents are no longer locked up in this way, because these people have committed no crimes whatsoever, apart from to come here to seek to either improve the quality of their life, or in most instances come from countries where their human rights are being abused and their very lives are at risk.
I managed to talk to a few of the detainees inside who are about to be repatriated. One of them, Luqman Mustafa, was particularly distressed.
Kurdistan unsafe! Kurdistan unsafe!
On the day of repatriation, the demonstration moves to Bra's Norton RAF base in Oxfordshire, where the detainees are to be shipped back on board of a military plane. Dashti Jamal is the spokesperson for the International Federation of Iraqi Refugees.
We try to contact a number of the human rights and the refugee rights organizations, even the Amnesty International and the UNHCR and the Refugee Council. They warning that policy to not send back forcibly any Iraqi asylum seeker to Iraq, but the Home Office still they continue with their policy. Even in their website, they warning the British citizen people to not go back to Iraq, including Kurdistan region.
I also spoke to one of the protesters, Teresa Hayter.
And if they don't like people coming here, well, they shouldn't go and bomb their countries.
So
and the great majority of people who come here for asylum come from countries which have been invaded by the West. And the others come from countries with repressive regimes which are supported by the West.
Despite the protest, appeal and demonstrations, the Home Office decided to go ahead with forced repatriating the failed Kurdish asylum seekers. The only thing I can do now is to fly out to Iraq, to Kurdistan region, and find out for myself what happened to these forcibly repatriated asylum seekers.
The Kurdish region in the north of Iraq is certainly not as dangerous as Baghdad, but the situation here is still very volatile and the atmosphere is extremely tense. There are checkpoints everywhere and almost everyone is armed. The 38 detainees from the UK landed here at Erbil International Airport. And my first search is for Luqman, who I spoke to on the phone outside Colnbrook Detention Center just before his repatriation.
ژیانم لە مەترسیایە بۆ دەمنێرنەوە بۆ وڵاتێکی خۆم
باش ئێوە بەس دەرمکەن با بڕۆمە وڵاتێکی تر کە ژیانی من لێ ئەوە بێت تەمین بێ دیەوە بەدەست ئێمە نییە هۆمۆفیز بڕیاری داوەتان گەڕێنێتەوە سەعات 5 بەیانی هەڵیان ساندین کەلەپچەیان لەدەست کردین سواری پاسیان کردین بردیانین بۆ مەتارێکی عەسکەری هەر نەفرێک و نەفرێکی هۆمۆفیزیان لەگەڵدا ناوین پێشەوەی چارەکێک بگاتە ناو هەولێر هین ئەم هێلەگە عەسکەریەکان هەیە لەگەڵ خوودی عەسکەری بێمە دەڵێ ئەوانە لەسەرکەن وتمان باشە بۆ ئەوانە لەسەرکەین ئەوە بۆی ژیانتان سێفتی بێ یەکێک ئەگەر ژیانمان سێفتیە بۆ دەمانێرنەوە ئەگەر ژیانمان سێفتی نییە.
Luqman told me his life was in danger in Iraq because of his past involvement within local politics. You claim that by being here, your life is in danger and you are bringing danger to your family as well. Is that why you want to go back to the UK?
ئەمە یەکێک لە هۆیەکان. دووەم هۆی لەوێ من گێڵفرێندم هەیە کە خۆشم لەوێ خۆشی دەوم دەمەوێت ژیان تەواو ژیانی خۆم لەوێ بەسەر بەرم لەگەڵ ئەوە. Tracy? Hello? Yeah? I'm just passing my phone to friend. He want to ask you a few questions, okay?
Tracy, hello.
Hello.
How do you feel about living so far away from Luqman?
Yeah, I can't send my send him back because he's not done nothing wrong in England. Next time I cry because he's not here. Because I love him so much. And we want to get married and we're going to try for baby.
Luqman's parents told me that their son's behavior since his return is really worrying them. He doesn't leave the house or socialize in the family and spends most of his time on the phone to Tracy.
أو كرة لأخوي أمين يشتري وما حرسياتي بدياري وقرين ناوير دانش اللي بخوا براستي
زور نقرانا بو حالته
زور
حيفا بو دولتي شوكو قوري وكو بريطانيا كالأساس ما في مروفيا بلان مع الأسف وأوك كلبتي بين الرو وكردستان
أنكلاشينكوف تنبوشي المعلوية
ومحافظة مالخو معنا وخرافة كريم نية تنانت ويا دشمن زفرم فينا به
Saddam and his regime may not be a threat to the Kurds anymore, but when security is such a problem that every household has a gun, I find it hard to understand how the Home Office can claim that this region is safe. I went to see Falah Mustafa, the head of foreign relations for the Kurdistan Regional Government, KRG, to ask him what his position was.
The KRG's position is clear and we reject any forced repatriation of our refugees. Kurdistan is not yet ready to receive these large numbers of people who have got failed asylum seeking cases, because we know that these people, when they come back, they will become a burden on themselves, on their families, on the KRG. Therefore, we encourage the voluntary repatriation and not the enforced repatriation.
But the KRG's call for voluntary return is very different to what happens in practice in the UK. The Home Office says that since March 2003, more than 2,500 Iraqis have decided to return voluntarily, just like young Saadullah Kakal did. But when someone is refused asylum in the UK and deprived of all their rights, how can this be considered truly voluntary? I met Saadullah's young widow and his mother.
She says a missile hit their house and killed 14 members of her family, her brother, her sister, nephew, and nieces. Saadullah was all her hope, and now he's gone as well.
As if this wasn't enough, after his death, Saadullah's widow discovered that she was pregnant. During my trip, I heard of other cases like Saadullah's, victims of so-called voluntary return. But I am worried that it won't be long before someone who has been forcibly returned meets with the same fate. Surely the Home Office should be stopping people returning to Iraq, not doing the opposite. And no wonder I am yet to find anyone here who views their policy favorably. Lucas' ordeal is a prime example of the divisions that still exist in this region despite the fall of Saddam. He is a Muslim but loved a Christian girl. Her family threatened to kill him. Lucas' parents borrowed $10,000 to smuggle him out, and he ended up in the UK where he applied for asylum. To his horror, he was refused and forced repatriated. But Luca is determined to make his way back to the UK.
ليرة أنا متوشي نفسي دابا بالتأكيد. عند جيانم نية هيت مع عدل بشتار صعد لجورو. من بياني ببيش مرقب ببم لبخا بكوجرين بسم لكركو بوبرتقي نوي بكوم. يعني ليرة أنا بيروسترين تش لا يوانا تسكا. من الشتاء سافكر من تسكا القرت النكر دي توفكر شيء لناك موا.
ورقة. أصاي.
Lucas' fear of the gun culture is obviously justified. But it is the case of Sarwan, another failed asylum seeker from Europe, that is the most devastating. Unlike Luca, on his return, Sarwan reluctantly accepted a place in the new Iraqi army. On the night before his posting in Baghdad, he lost control of his senses completely. Picking up his AK-47, he not only shot at 9 of his neighbors, killing 2 of them, but also fired at and wounded his own father and 6-month-old sister, before eventually being gunned down himself by a surviving neighbor. Taha was Sarwan's childhood school friend. He knew him very well.
تاوري أوم لينا ذكر زاري كسينا يعني روجك يقي كسينا ذكر بيشوي كبروا أدبوا أوروبا تكلاوي زياتر بو هاوريتي مان زياتر بقواتر بو ورام دواي قرانوي كم دمديت بوشي وشي زاران تكلنا وين بس دور بدوري سلام عليك دري ذكر.
Ismail Hassan was injured by Sarwan. He was shot twice, and his son and wife as well. How do you feel about the British government sending back Kurds, failed asylum seekers, back here to this place?
كسلك بأرزي خونتو هم خوش نبيتو تكو توشي مشكلة كرجاني ويرجاني إلى فرقية كثيرا بينه إلى وضع كان تيكتي توشي نبوني بن توشي غدر بن إلى توشي مش توشي بن كتشتي ولا تسترودا هم خوش نبتوبزي بنيرنو.
On the night of the incident, Sarwan's family fled the town in fear of reprisals by the neighbors. The law of the gun is what rules around here. I caught up with Sarwan's father in his new hometown of Tobzawa.
كوري من زوج أمني نسي حدا كردم لمجنا لكولاني برسالة عالمي هيج مشاكل نبيا أو كوري وكي بدين بيشيد بي أو خابي لدرج لقد جماعة.
His father also told me his son was very clever and spoke 5 languages. Life could have been so different for Sarwan. According to the United Nations, some 50,000 people are fleeing their homes in Iraq every month. 1.9 million are now dispersed in other regions of Iraq, and 2 million of them are refugees in neighboring countries. But how does forced repatriation fit in with all of this? I asked Khalid Siddiqui, the head of UNHCR in Erbil.
Well, as a humanitarian organization, I will not subscribe to the forced return. And even at the moment, the economic situation is not right, security situation is not right, and there's a lot to be done in this area to provide these people to be returned back home.
Perhaps the Home Office's controversial policy of forced repatriation is intended to deter some of these new refugees from seeking sanctuary in the UK. On the hills outside Slemani city, I met with a group of failed asylum seekers.
Can I ask how many of you were forced repatriated, handcuffed on a military aircraft brought back here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 of you. And how many came back voluntarily, so-called voluntarily? As 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of you. And how many of you will go back to the UK? Everyone. You all want to go back to the UK?
Yes.
Yes. You will go back via Iran, Turkey, you will smuggle yourself back?
Yes. Yes, of course.
In fact, a few of the forced repatriated and those returned voluntarily have already succeeded in making it back to the UK. So one wonders if the Home Office is actually fighting a losing battle. Before returning to the UK, my last stop is to meet Sherzad's parents in Kirkuk. I asked them why don't they tell their son to simply leave London and come home voluntarily.
کوڕەکەی ئەمە هەڕەشەی کوشتنی لێ کراوە هاتوونەتە سەرمان ئازاری خۆمانیان زۆر داوە ئەزانین ئێمە کوڕەکەمان بێتەوە ئەیرانە ژیانی نابێ ئەوەی کوشن.
Sherzad was not only fleeing from Saddam, his death threats were being made by a local fundamentalist religious group.
بەتەمای خۆمانین بڕۆستانی ئەو سەرجادەیەکە یا تەخوێنەیەکیان بوو دە کەس لێیان مرد وە دەقەی حتا وەتەمای خۆشمانین بزان تەقینە نایگرێت بزان تیرۆزت نایگرێت بزان نایفرێنن ئەوە ژیانمانە کەس حەز دەکەم مناڵی خۆی دووری ئێستا خەت وەختی وایە ئەوە نەبرسیمە نانم بۆ ناخورێت لەبەرەوەی بیری کوڕەکەم ئەکەم لەبەر حەزکەم دەستکەمە منی ماچ کە لێلێ بحەسێمە کەس حەز ناکەم مناڵەکە دەست ساڵە نەمدی ئەو کوڕە خەریکە گیام دەرەچێ بۆی.
Back in London, I am revisiting Sherzad. I want to find out if anything has changed with his situation. And I also have a message to deliver.
هەرچەند بیریشتەکەم بێتاقەتم هەموو کەس حەزەکەم ناواتێ بێتە لای بەس کار ژیانەکەمە بوو دەسڵات نییە بخۆ.
کوڕی خۆم شێرزاد ئێمە تەمەەن حەزەکەین هەموو ساعتی لە بەرچاومان بێت بەڵام لەبەرەوەی ژیانی لە مەترسیایە قەت ڕازی نیم حەزەکەم بگیرێ لەوێنە ئەگەر بیش کوژێ ئەوان بوو کوژ لێ بکوژێ باشترە حەزم هاتنەوە نییە.
But for now, Sherzad's fate is out of his hands. He remains on the Home Office's list to be forced repatriated and joins thousands of others who face an uncertain future.